Okay, we're at the top of page 9, first full paragraph on page 9. Some of the observables one can note from examples of the tragic tradition could be regarded as purely dramatic conventions, yet they are perhaps clues to the essence we seek. In all the paradigmatic models, highlight, tragedy takes place in a disturbed realm that has only recently begun to question its established doxa, circle doxa. Doxa are just characteristics. And I'll put that on the board. But it's really easy. Established characteristics. It makes use of, keep highlighting, tragedy makes use of few characters and even fewer incidents in the unfolding of the plot. It tends to observe an inexorable cause and effect. So circle inexorable. And it means it doesn't stop. Keep highlighting. Single out a lone and most instances male protagonist and move towards a shattering conclusion, usually concluding with the tragic hero's death and the deconstruction of the established regime that has revolved around him. Keep going. It moves with extraordinary rapidity. Tragic time is brief, swift-paced, demanding immediate action, leaving little room for alternatives for those moving to destruction. Stop. Yet somewhere in it there is leisure for lamentation. The chorus, or one of the victimized characters, manages to stop time and utter cries and protests that in rising from the depths demand a lyric primordial language. So Ophelia does this in Hamlet. You're going to see a woman named Iologia do it in the play we're about to read, where they briefly, like for seconds, can just cry out. Kind of like Christ on the cross when he's like crying out, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" It's this tragic situation. And then there's this primordial cry where time seems to stop for just a second. But it's not stopping time like in a comedy where you can take a break and reconsider. There's no reconsidering. It's just a wail to make things stop, and things won't stop. Oh, speaking of wailing, highlight this. Its wailing has something always to do with lost unity, with the earth, with the gods. Further, tragedy tends to portray the victimization of the feminine, to concern the relation of fathers and children, downplaying or ignoring the maternal. Its total effect is usually to portray the collapse of the myth of order. And though it may offer some sort of reconciliation, it leaves its audience with a vision of a denuded, circle denuded world, and only a faint hope for any possible far-off restoration of civil harmony. Stop. So, not very promising. But like I was saying earlier, neither is total flooding of the earth, and we still recovered from that. Again, sometimes you just have to clear the decks, wash everything clean, and tragedy will do that. And then it's up to humans to try and recover. As the tragic action has conceived in Greek and Shakespearean drama, its two high points of tragedy, it describes an arc divided into 3 parts. Francis Ferguson, basing his analysis on Sophocles' Oedipus the King, has designated 3 portions of action as, highlight, purpose, passion, and perception. Stop highlighting. The Greek trilogies themselves testify to this tripartite structure, though we have to circle extrapolate somewhat from the Oresteia, the only complete surviving trilogy, in order to discern the underlying action of the triple structure in other Greek cycles. In the first stage of tragedy, we can see in the Agamemnon, the first drama of the Oresteia, the catastrophe occurs at the end, top of 10, producing a violent reversal, a fall from happiness to misery. This portion is the portion of the tragedy described in the Poetics, with the more than ordinary man coming to misery, his hamartia causing a tragic misstep that leads to ate, which is Greek for madness, and finally to peripetia and anagnoresis, reversal and recognition, with pity and fear producing a catharsis, purgation. Aristotle analyzes Sophocles' Oedipus the King as the paradigmatic example of tragic art, but in fact, rather than encompassing the entire range of tragedy as we see from an encounter with Oedipus at Colonus, this play represents only the first moment of the tragic movement, the stage on which the terrible deed is done. In Aeschylus's Oresteia, the opening drama, Agamemnon traces out this movement, and one must be justified in speculating that the lost play of Prometheus takes place in this stage, like Oedipus the King, the Bacchae, and Othello. In the second stage, the catastrophe occurs at the beginning or has just occurred. This is the time of, highlight this. Second stage, the catastrophe occurs at the beginning. This is the time of stasis marked by tension, conflict, suffering, paradox, indecision. Stop. Tragedies that fit this category are the Libation Bearers, which is the second drama of the Oresteia, Job, Prometheus Bound, Electra, Hamlet, Macbeth, and the Oedipus play that Sophocles did not write, which could have had to depict the time between Thebes and colonists, his hero's period, blah, 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 blah. Next paragraph. Highlight. Looking back over the tradition, one can see that, in contrast with comedy, tragedy has an immediate and powerful impact on the reader or viewer. The effect of comedy is developmental, lifting spirits and enlightening intellects, so the audience can see better, which is a quote from King Lear, how to compromise and endure in a damaged world. Tragedy, in contrast, is cataclysmic, circles cataclysmic, granting its recipients a terrible and exalted kind of wisdom then and there at the very moment. Stop. And in any profound questioning of tragedy, it is the character of this revelation that one seeks to know. What is it, one wonders, that the viewers of, or perhaps more accurately, participants in, this most mysterious of genres see and understand? Is it at base what Soyinka claims for Yoruban tragic ritual, a taming of the abyss, or a surrender to it? Are the participants in tragedy being swallowed up for a moment in an outer darkness, a glimpse of uncreation, of Nile, a blackened chaos? Is it that their being is contingent, that they did not create themselves, that they stand convinced before a primal power unimaginable in its grandeur? Is Kafka's trial a proper delineation of tragic fear? That one is accused of a nameless crime by a faceless judge to be tried at a time and place with evidence of which one is kept ignorant? We should have to say, rather, that Job's, Oedipus's, or Lear's situation is much worse. Highlight. What each confronts is something that elicits his self-condemnation, something that makes him repent in dust and ashes, or dash out his eyes, or take leave of his reason. Stop. So quoting King Lear here, in fact, quoting Lear himself, I am bound upon a wheel of fire. The old king declares to his daughter Cordelia that mine own tears do scald like molten lead. He is carried in Yeats's words about tragedy in general, beyond time and persons, to where passion living through its 1,000 purgatorial years as in the wink of an eye becomes wisdom. Highlight. But to attain this wisdom, the hero must go down into the abyss and the audience is brought as near as possible to its brink. Stop.